Hey guys, it's Bella, the maker mama boss lady behind Bella's Custom Crochets, and today I'm going to be showing you how to work the Herringbone Single Crochet Stitch. It's a stitch that I use in my Herringtone Marliday cowl patterns. This is the fingering weight marl version. This is the worsted weight version, but I'm going to be showing you how to do it both for this pattern and on your own. The cowl pattern calls for different yarn weights, but I'm going to be working with a 5 bulky weight yarn and a 9mm crochet hook just so you can see a little bit better. First, I'm going to show you how to work the stitch flat, which you would be used for swatching, and then I'm going to show you how to kind of hack the stitch and work it in the round for the pattern. Let's get started. You can start out chaining really whatever number of stitches you'd like or whatever your pattern calls for. I'm going to chain 16. To work the Herringbone Single Crochet Stitch flat, we're going to start out by working the first row into the back bumps of the crochet chain. It just kind of gives it a better finish. So to start this out, this stitch is worked over basically a 2-row repeat. So there's like a right side row and a wrong side row. And it's a little fiddly at first, but I promise it's not too bad. So to do the first right side row, we're going to single crochet into the first back bump of the chain here. All of the rows are going to begin with a single crochet stitch, and it's going to count as your first stitch throughout. Now we're going to start the herringbone part. So if you look at the single crochet we just made, there's kind of like 2 legs here, and each has a front and a back. We're going to insert our hook into the front of the left leg, so right in between the two. Insert into the left leg, and then into the next back bump of the chain. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then you're going to pull through all 3, like kind of like a half double crochet. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to insert into that second left leg there of the stitch. We're going to insert our hook into the next back bump chain, yarn over, pull up the loop, and then pull through all 3. And we're going to keep repeating that across the row, and that's going to give us our first right side row. To the left leg, into the back bump, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull through all 3. If you are working my cowl pattern, you're going to be actually working the herringbone stitch off of the ribbing when you are working the cowl. But for the sake of swatching, you need to know how to start it out flat. So we're going to keep going till the end of the row. I'll meet you there. Just kidding, I'll meet you halfway. I wanted to say it's worth mentioning that you're going to want to keep the loops that you pull up pretty loose, especially this last one. This guy right here, make sure that's nice and loose or it's going to be really hard to get into the leg of that stitch. Nice and loose, you can jump right in there, no problem. So we have 1 chain left here in our first row, so we're just going to complete 1 more herringbone stitch, just like we were doing before. Nothing fancy to end a row. It's hard to tell what we got going on here, but all the stitches are kind of slanting. It'll start looking more like something as we keep going. So now we're going to do our wrong side. We're going to turn and we're going to chain 1. First row wasn't so bad. It's the second row where it gets fiddly. I promise, stick with me. It may take a couple rows and a couple tries, but you will get it. If you are swatching for the cowl itself, I would suggest trying it in a larger yarn and larger hook like this because it's easier to see what you're doing and it might help you get things figured out. So second row, we've chained 1. Basically this row I refer to as reverse herringbone single crochet because we're going to basically do everything we just did but through the backwards. It's kind of funny. So we're going to single crochet. Normally you'd go this way, right? We're going to single crochet through the back here. So we're going to look at the right side. This is our wrong side. Flip it over and look at the right side and insert into the stitch just like you were going to do a single crochet, but backwards. You're going to yarn over, pull up a loop. I promise it gets easier, and then single crochet. So that's our first single crochet stitch to start out the row. And just like we did before, we're going to be working into that leg and working our herringbone stitch across, but we're working looking at the right side while working on the wrong side. Never seen another stitch like this, but I promise it's not bad. So flip it over. We're going to find that second leg again. So that guy there. Let me see if I can show you a little better. So we're going to go into this leg, and then we're going to go backwards, single crocheting through that stitch. promise it's doable. So, trying to get my camera to focus here. There we go. Insert your hook through the back of that second leg of the stitch, and then backwards single crochet. Yarn over, and it's very helpful if once you catch this yarn and pull up the loop, you kind of rotate your hook as you go. It keeps it from falling off. So I kind of did a full rotation on my hook. Then yarn over and pull through. That part's easy. And you're like, Bella, what are you talking about? We'll do it again. This is our wrong side. Looking at the right side, we're going to pick up that leg, insert our hook in there, that second leg, and then we're going to single crochet through the back of the stitch, from back to front. Yarn over, twisting your hook so that we keep that yarn on there. Give it a full little twist. Yarn over and pull through all three. Do it a couple more times. And again, keep those loops nice and loose. And flip it over. Insert into that second leg of the stitch. Insert back to front. Yarn over. Pull up a loop. And then pull through all three. And eventually you'll get the hang of it where you won't have to flip it over every time. You kind of just know where that leg is and you can just work this way. But looking at the front side might be helpful. So we just keep working across, trying to keep the tension even with the first row. This row you're definitely going to have a tendency to tighten up a little more because you're working backwards and it's weird. So just practice. Grab that second leg, backwards through the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through all three. If you keep it nice and loose, it's easy to get in there. I think you're getting the hang of it, right? I'll meet you at the end of the row in a second. All right, last stitch of the row, through that second leg back here. Yarn over, rotate that hook, yarn over, and pull through all three. All right, so you're going to see that there's a very distinct front and back to the stitch as we get going here. Let me show you inside of the cowl. And you should be able to tell the back side is going to have these almost ridges, kind of like a ribbing. And if you're working into the right loops, you'll make sure that you'll get that ridged look. And then the front should be alternating, looking like herringbone. Once you get through that second row, you get back to that first row and you're like, whew, breath of fresh air. So we're going to turn again. We're on the right side. We're going to chain one and single crochet as normal. And you're like, whew, that's so easy. And we're going to work back across just like we did on the first row. Into that second leg of the stitch. Insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through all three. See, this row is just a piece of cake. And you can start to see once you get to row 3 here, the herringbones really start to form. The herringbones, is that what they're called? You really start to see the stitch come together. See, there they are. All right, last stitch of the row. See, it looks so good. Now we're going to turn and chain one again. And now we got to do that backwards stuff. So we're going to do our first reverse single crochet in the first stitch here. Keeping it nice and loose. And again, you can flip it over and look at this side if that helps you find where you're going. And we're going into this second leg and then into that stitch. So through that second leg and then through the next stitch, backwards, back to front, yarn over, give it a little rotate, Wish I could slow-mo that rotate more for you. Yarn over and pull through all 3. And that's it, guys. It's just a 2-row repeat, so it's not too bad. Like I said, you should be seeing these ridges on the back. You want to make sure you're going and getting those, because otherwise, like if you're working into like this part instead of the single crochet stitch here, it's going to turn out not right. So that took me a couple tries to get that part right. So just make sure you're working into the stitch and not this back ridge. Just make it across this row, and then I'm going to show you how to work it in the round. Alright, so we're 4 rows in there, and you can really see the herringbone pattern starting to pop out. And just make sure that you're getting that alternating slant and you're well on your way to the herringbone stitch. Now I'm going to show you how to kind of hack this pattern into working in the round. So I've just completed a wrong side row. I just have some stitches working in the round here. So basically to work it in the round, we're going to continue working like we have been, but in the round, slipping to join and then turning to either side. You'll see what I mean. So we're going to turn back to our right side and chain 1. Normally when working in the round like this, where you're switching from back to front, I recommend marking your right side and wrong side, but this is so drastically different looking. Got the ridges in there and then the herringbone on the outside. You should be able to tell, no problem. So to start our right side, we're going to work just like we have before with a single crochet in our first stitch. And using the exact same stitch technique, we're going to work around in the round for our right side row. Looks familiar, right? I'll meet you at the other side. Alright, so we're to the last stitch of the round. Let's finish it off right here. And then we're just going to slip stitch into this first stitch here to join. Typically with working in the round. And then what we're going to do, instead of continuing going, what's that, clockwise, we're going to flip it over, looking at the inside now, and we're going to start working counterclockwise. Or as my Irish step dancing teacher always said, anti-clockwise. So we're going to do our chain 1 and our backwards reverse single crochet here. And we're just going to work our reverse herringbone, oh, we just split that stitch. Reverse herringbone single crochet like we have been, looking at the inside here. You can pretty much do this with any stitch pattern to work it in the round. It's a great little hack. So we're going to keep working around like that. It is going to give you a little bit of a seam in the back of your cowl or whatever piece, hat, whatever you want to be working on. Tiny bit of a seam, but if you have long hair like me, that'll hide it no problem. And it's much better than trying to seam it up later on. I'll meet you at the other side of the row here. So we're back to the end of the round here. Pick up that second leg in the back there. And then we're just going to slip stitch to join. It's a little fiddly, the slip stitching, because we've been reversing that single crochet at the beginning there, but you can make it work. Slip stitch to join, and then we're just going to turn and work a right side row. Got a little bit of a seam there, but it looks real pretty from the front. And it's a great way to work this stitch into the round. I hope that gave you a helpful visual on how to work the herringbone single crochet both flat and in the round. I'll make sure I link down below to all the places you can find this cowl pattern. You can find the worsted weight version free on my blog, and both patterns will be available in my Etsy and Ravelry shops as well. Can't wait to see what you make. Happy making, my friends. Bye!